Hey guys, thank you for showing up even though it's already 4 p.m. I really appreciate that. Today I'll be talking about JavaScript playgrounds. Let me ask you this in the beginning right away. Who of you knows what a JavaScript playground is? Oh, beautiful. Cool. So you already know what I'll be talking about. Just very quickly, let me explain to you who I am and what I'm doing, and then basically kind of segue over why I'm dealing with JavaScript playgrounds all the time. I'm a developer evangelist, doing open source initiatives and kind of evangelize for open source initiatives at SAP. Some of the cool features that I did throughout the last few weeks is probably GitHub hosted tutorials. So we right now pull tutorials for SAP.com from GitHub. I usually give webcasts about our JavaScript playground, JavaScript library, OpenUI 5. And I also organize the Bay Area open source meetup. So I'm kind of very much involved into the whole open source story and front-end development. Obviously JavaScript. Now as a developer evangelist or advocate, I usually go to people, speak about our technology and kind of try to get them started very quickly. So that's why I'm using JavaScript playgrounds all the time, because they allow me to have an isolated code piece and get started without thinking about IDE, configuration, or anything else. So that's why I'm dealing with JavaScript playgrounds. Now, going over to this whole topic, during my research, when I did that in the beginning, when I tried to figure out what kind of playground I should go with for my job, I realized that there are more than 10 JavaScript playgrounds out there, having very similar features, however, like small differences when it comes to very specific things. So probably you know some of them, like CodePen, JSFiddle, and JSBin are probably the most known frameworks, JavaScript playgrounds. However, there's much more, and that's not even the full list. I actually identified many different others. Now, what makes a JavaScript playground first? A JavaScript playground essentially gives you the opportunity to edit your code, preview it, and share with other people. And I think the very last bit is the most crucial aspect to it, because otherwise you could just use your web IDE or some kind of other environment with some plugins installed to actually accomplish exactly that thing. However, JavaScript playgrounds allow you to share that code, and even going beyond that, they allow you to collaborate together. So essentially, there's kind of a mode for people in some of the JavaScript playgrounds already, where you can collaborate, share your code, and see how other people are actually editing different pieces of the code and update immediately your result and see what's happening there. So that's a really cool feature, and I think that will be probably very much asked for in the future, but more about later on. So I just gave you an example what JavaScript playgrounds do. This one is actually a bit that I created. It's a code that's shared on Plunker. Plunker is one of the JavaScript playgrounds, and as you can see, I have different files over here that you could actually browse and check out, in more detail. However, the most important aspect here is you can actually see that this is a live running code of my piece that I created. I can do, all kinds of stuff, move it around, and so on and so forth. So that's why I use JavaScript playgrounds, because I can actually demonstrate my applications right away. And you can do the same thing either with customers or some other people that you just go to, maybe your team members, and so on and so forth. So that's why I think JavaScript playgrounds are actually very important. Now, just very roughly, maybe, that's an extensive list. But why should you actually care about JavaScript playgrounds? And I already mentioned in the beginning that you might just want to use it to actually quickly show off what you want to create or what you want to do. So it's all about creating prototypes and being very quick. That's why those playgrounds are very important during inception mode. So whenever you create a new project and you want to actually create a proof of concept, you want to get started with something and figure out if it actually works like you expect it to work, you just go ahead, jump into the code piece, and just code it right away. And that allows you to have a very fast iteration cycle. So you don't need to reload, you don't need to switch from editor to your browser and hit reload or whatever not. Just skip all of that. You just code and you see the result immediately. So that's why it's very important. On the other side, you might want to test certain things just in isolation. And I think one of the key aspects why JavaScript playgrounds became more famous is probably because people saw them on Stack Overflow. Whenever people had certain issues or wanted to figure out something or show a solution to a problem, they actually created small code snippets and they shared them. Now, in the beginning, they used JavaScript playgrounds for it. However, that changed. Now, Stack Overflow has their own development for that. And that's where you can see that you can actually test isolated use cases. You can have very specific methods, test them, and send them over very quickly to explain what you did there and how this problem could be solved. There are other cool features that you might want to use. For instance, one of the JavaScript playgrounds allows you to share your code, and it looks just beautiful. There's a community. They can like it. They can comment on it. So essentially, if you want to brag about it, you want to show it, you can just do that on the JavaScript playground and share your code. So people will see your result immediately. They will see probably how cool you solved a certain problem. And you can just share it right away. You can put it into your blog post. People can see right away the result. They can also see the sources of it. So that's a pretty cool feature. Now, why you should care about this specific talk right now is because there are actually so many different JavaScript playgrounds, it's hard to navigate and figure out which one you should go with and which one might be interesting for you. Now, very basic, the idea is you need to figure out what kind of different needs you might have. And that different needs actually are shaped by many, many different aspects that you might have. For instance, your audience. If it's very technical, you might want to figure out a very technical, just code-based solution. If it's a very specific JavaScript library, you might need to figure out how to use that JavaScript library in the playground. And I have a very specific example for this piece because one of the libraries that I evangelized for, OpenUI 5 within SAP, implements the model view controller pattern in a very specific way. It kind of requires you to have files, separated files. One per model, one per view, and one per controller, right? So it's kind of hard to get everything in one file, and you end up with spaghetti code if you just, do, let's say, JSBin files. And that's why I came across Plunker. Plunker actually allows you to have separate files and see them right away as a preview. So that's a pretty cool thing. Overall, they have much in common. However, certain use cases that you might expect are not covered yet. And very briefly, before we go ahead, playgrounds are not supposed to replace your IDE. They should not they should not cover all the complex scenarios that you might have. For instance, if it comes to data retrieval, it's actually very, very hard to achieve in certain playgrounds. You will probably come across the course problems, and you need to figure out how to deal with JSON-P and so on and so forth. And they're also not really supposed to help you with testing, building, or minifying. So it's really focusing on this kind of inception phase of your project. In the very beginning, trying to get something done quickly, trying to achieve this wow effect with your customer, for instance, and then go from there and kind of put it into your own whole environment and develop in your code editor. So how would you approach if you would like to choose a JavaScript framework, JavaScript playground? Now, usually you would start off with your needs. You would try to figure out what you need for this specific use case. And I did that for myself as well. I created actually a list of 11 categories and 83 criteria. And I have that all on GitHub. You can see them as well. You can check them out, and you can figure out if there's something that you might need for yourself. Here's a list of all the different categories that I created. For instance, community, how much adoption is there, how many people are actually helping you out if stuff is happening, how can you achieve collaboration, connectivity, can you actually access your files through an API or not, and all those different bits and pieces I was actually looking into when I created this kind of, research more or less for my own project, and I wanted to share with you. Now, the next thing is to figure out what kind of playgrounds you actually want to analyze. And I told you there are many, many different ones, and I kind of boiled it down to a list of 8 relevant for JavaScript. And based off those 8, I even boiled it down a bit more, and I created 2 tiers. I created the first tier, which has more adoption and probably more known. Those are the 4 over here. It's CodePen, Plunker, JSBin, and JSFiddle. And then I have a tier 2, which is probably of less known JavaScript playgrounds, and also some kind of a beta or alpha stadium. Out of those 4, JSFiddle focuses on the KISS principle. So very, very easy, not too many features, rather just allowing you to dump some code and share it with people and probably collaborate on it, but it does not give you, all the features that you might need. The other ones, though, are very, very much feature-driven. So if you want to check out the raw analysis, just in case, and if you want to contribute and help me, and if you want to add some other playgrounds, you can definitely do that. I have that on GitHub. You can create some issues, or if you see something that's wrong, just let me know. As you can see, that's quite a lengthy list. So let me switch over here. Now, let me summarize what I did there and what I could find during my research. Certain steps, certain things that you might want to consider if you actually create a new project and you want to figure out what kind of playground to go with. That's a very, I would say, initial list. If there's need, and if you tell me that you actually would like to see more, I can create some kind of an app that allows you to choose and select and filter from it. However, I just wanted to figure out if there's actually a need in the beginning. So if you want to actually, just let me, Jim, just go through the tasks very quickly. If you want to figure out what you want to choose, what kind of playground you want to choose, you can use this initial list to figure out if you can actually exclude certain things or include them. For instance, if you need file support, and that's what I needed for my framework, you might want to use Plunker or CodePen. CodePen is a bit tougher to use, so Plunker is kind of the go-to playground in that case. If you care about beautified code, JSFiddle, CodePen, or Plunker again. If you need some kind of a pre-processing, and that happens quite often, you might want to go with these 4 frameworks that I listed over here, because not all of them support it extensively. Those 2 are very important, JSBin and Plunker. You can run them locally because they're open source. You can actually download them, put them in your own environment, and have them somewhere, maybe in your intranet or something within the company running just specifically for your own use case. That's a really cool one. CodePen is the only one that is actually optimized for mobile. I don't know if you would do it, if you would code actually on mobile, but you could do it with CodePen. It actually allows you to switch between the views very easily. And the one cool feature about it is you can actually display your responsive applications and figure out how they look on mobile as well with this JS Playground. What else would be important? I think one JS library over here, CodeTest, is kind of a unicorn because it allows you to test responsiveness. It actually changes the width of the result screen, and it also shows you the layers. So if you have some kind of div layers overlapping each other, you can actually analyze them and see them right away in CodeTest. So that's a pretty cool thing. Now, if you want to have kind of a very interesting, a very, very cool cycle between importing and exporting, you might want to go with JSBin, because JSBin allows you to import gists from GitHub, and it allows you also to export them right away. And that's the only JavaScript playground that allows you to do so. Other ones would need, kind of zip archives that you need to download, or just, put everything into one HTML thing. And I think one thing that is very important that's coming up very soon, I think it's trending right now, is the live collaboration. So if you want to do live coding with people, or kind of coding podcasts or webcasts, those frameworks are very, very good in that case. Other ones do not have a collaboration feature included. And out of those 4, there are actually only 2 that are really, really useful. And out of those 2, there's only 1, and I would need to look up the name of it, that actually records your activities on the screen. So you can kind of share a recording right away as soon as you're done with development. You can share that recording and kind of have it for all the people on your blog or somewhere available. Versioning. If you care about different versions, and you probably will if you use it extensively, you should not use CodePen. It does not allow you to have different versions or see insights about different versions and changes. Conclusions. Disclaimer, this list is just based on the research that I did, and it might change very quickly. I see changes all the time, and throughout the usage of those JavaScript playgrounds for the last few weeks, I saw how they actually change and how they implement new features. I see where some JavaScript playgrounds are working on. For instance, there's one JavaScript playground reworking the whole back end, and they will have many, many different other features in just probably a few weeks or so. So that's just my disclaimer. Otherwise, I can tell you that I think Plunker should be the feared underdog in tier 1. Out of those 4 probably prominent JavaScript playgrounds, Plunker is the one that has less adoption, and it does not really have a nice documentation. That's true. However, I think it has all the features and the most important cool things included. Probably will gain traction very soon. Now, if you don't care about sharing your code, just use your IDE. Do not even go the way and bother about using JavaScript playgrounds. If you just want to code something and you do not care about sharing, just use some web IDEs like Cloud9 or Sublime or something. I think there's one thing that we need to work on overall in JavaScript Playground field. We need to figure out how to import more files, and we need to kind of extend those features. The only importing features that I've seen so far is literally just GitHub gists, and that's it. So you cannot even import files or archives. You cannot do that right now. And I think as soon as we get there, we might even come to a point where you can actually take a piece that you developed, upload it there, test it out very quickly to ensure that there's no local kind of thing changing your code or your results, and just go from there, export it again, and continue development locally. Another thing, if you need the playground for Node.js, there's JSApp. That's a pretty cool thing. I just realized that a few weeks ago. And if you want to test your performance, just JSPerf. I think we have a few more minutes, so let me just quickly finish that. In the beginning, as I already mentioned, probably most people realized that there are actually JavaScript playgrounds because they saw them on Stack Overflow. They saw that somebody created a code, they clicked on it, and then that's how they kind of got into this whole playground field. But now, Stack Overflow, they created their own solution called Stack Snippets, and there are certain reasons for that. I give them that. However, that kind of removes the traction from JavaScript playgrounds probably a bit more. On the other side, I see that there's a trend coming up for coding webcasts, and that will probably increase the adoption, especially if we have more advanced features in terms of recording and sharing all your records, probably even with voice and comments and so on and so forth. The one framework that I mentioned that's kind of reworking or entirely reworking the whole backend implementation is CodeMagic. And CodeMagic appears to be another underdog that just appeared a few months ago, and they have many, many different features that look super clean, very useful. However, they do not allow you to share your code pieces yet because they don't have a backend to kind of store all of that and generate the URLs yet. So they're kind of working on it, and that's coming up very soon. Now, if any of the makers are actually looking into this, I would probably advise them to stop creating new playgrounds and rather focus on extension points for core functionalities. What I see happening is right now we have more than 12 playgrounds that I'm aware of, and they have very, very similar functionalities. Now, I don't know why you would need 12 of them, because I don't think we have so many different use cases for JavaScript playgrounds. That's why I would probably advise to go more a modular way of development, kind of create extension points for people. And besides that, most of the frameworks actually are built on top of other open source projects. For instance, AC Editor or Code Mirror, and for collaboration, it's Together.js. That's basically it. So if you guys have any questions, yes, you do. Yeah, you can actually, if you look into my list, I realized that as well, and I was looking into that. There's a console view for some of the JavaScript playgrounds. The way you can actually avoid using the console view, and you don't need even the console view, is the developer tools. You can actually just open up the developer tools and kind of figure out, where your console log appears. So that works out as well. Yes, there is. There are actually, certain playgrounds. There you go. Certain playgrounds that allow you to have a console view, so you can actually just open it up as next to HTML, JavaScript, and results. You can actually open up a console view, and this one. The ones are definitely including that is CodePen and JSBin as of right now. However, what you can do if you look into your developer tools, you can actually kind of filter out what kind of things you see in the developer tools. So if you go on Chrome, you will be able to select, for instance, if you're on Plunker, you'll be able to select Run Plunker as a domain and then tell that you actually are only interested in the console logs coming from that specific domain. So you can kind of target it and narrow it down. That works too. I can show it to you after the presentation.
Okay, one last thing. There was a presentation, I don't know.
So one of the solutions is definitely to filter out the developer tool. The feedback that you get from the console, you can actually filter that out. Another solution is to actually open up the embed view or kind of the full screen view of your application. So most of the playgrounds allow you to kind of have the real view of your application, and they open up in a new tab. And that's where you can actually just look into the specific console log that is related to your app. Very inconvenient, though. I give you that, but that's another solution. Yes, please. Yeah, I can. The example that I showed you is actually an example with folders. This one, as you can see over here, I have different folders. The trick is, as you would do it with GitHub, if you create something on the UI, you just type in the slash, and Plunker will realize it's a folder. So the entire full name of this thing, if I could create a new name, is JS/IADN. That's a trick. Any other questions? Okay, awesome. Thank you very much, guys.